Hi, Jean. Hello, hello. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you too.
Thank you.
Um, I figured that for those people that are willing to show up on time, they should not get penalized for those people who decide not to show up on time. So, um, let me share my screen. So it's highly unlikely that I will get lost in the midst of this presentation. So if there's something that's unclear that you want me to speak to, just speak up rather than wait till later. Don't raise your hand or wave or anything because I probably won't see it. I get lost in what I'm talking about. So thank you for coming. I'd like to spend the next hour and a half sharing part of my journey in my land of trial and learning. I keep telling people not to make the assumption that I actually know what I'm doing because every day is just more trial and learning. So, uh, and I've been on this journey since 1975 when I read Stafford Beer's Platform for Change. And some people think that I've been mentally irregular ever since. And since then, there have been decades of stuff that I've developed that just got lost in space someplace. So the real part of the journey starts around 2010 when Scott Fort Monroe started developing Insight Maker. I I developed hundreds of terrible PowerPoint presentations while I was in corporate America, the kind where by slide 10 you can't remember what was on slide 1. And you're asking yourself, how do I get out of here? Because I don't want to sit through the rest of the presentation. And once Scott developed Insight Maker and built a very nice storytelling feature in it, I thought that by using storytelling and unfolding a model, I could overcome the problems that I created with my PowerPoint presentations. And it took me a number of years to realize that I was doing the same thing with my stories that I did with PowerPoint presentations, because by the time I unfolded the sixth or seventh loop in the model, people couldn't remember what the first loop was. So Insight Maker sort of came to a developmental conclusion, though Scott is still working on it. And I connected with the Kumu people, and their storytelling feature in the way that they allowed you to create relationship models was fascinating. And I spent about 3 years testing everything that they built, falling in love with the software, and continuing to do the same thing that I had done for decades, which is build models and inflict them on other people. And finally realizing that all of the models that I have ever created were flawed based upon my own personal level of ignorance. When I sit down now, I have a very straightforward 8-step process for creating models, which I think is very simple, though I can only create a model and include things that I know or think I know. And I get to a point where I run out of things I think I know, and I try to present the model to other people and ask them about how to improve it. The difficulty is trying to get them to understand this spaghetti diagram that I've developed. And to some extent, you learn how to do it, and to some extent, it's just eye candy and confusing, and people just want you to go away. So, still content or intent on building relationship models, I spent about a year working with a group of people who were developing this thing that I called CLD AI, which was an AI environment for creating relationship models. And I was so addicted to this environment, it was unbelievable. I created probably 250 models that year because models are the way that I understand things about looking at the relationships and the influences. though, since it wasn't going to turn into a product, it was not going anywhere. I hesitated to share the models with other people because they couldn't access them and play with them. I mean, what use is it to just give somebody a picture of something and tell them about it? So I finally connected with the AI stuff that came out, started using ChatGPT and finally gravitated to Gemini. And I don't think I have a real good reason why I did that. And I started trying to figure out what I could get it to do. And in terms of I started developing gems, which are like short scripts or directives that you give it to work from instead of retyping it all the time. And I got it to do things about looking at situations and tell me what the archetypes were and what the leverage points were, even though some people hate the term leverage points. And for a given situation, how to deal with it and different things. And if I have a situation, which ones of the 14 habits of a systems thinker from the Waters Foundation are probably most likely useful in looking at the situation and all of these things. And it was just playing with it, trying to figure out what it understood and learning that it understood everything far better than I have ever done. And I finally got to a point of creating a sequence of scripts for it to develop a model. Well, I found out really quickly that it was clueless about how to actually develop a model, but it could give me a couple of CVS tables, comma separated value tables, that I could then copy and put in a text file and drop into Kumu and actually have it create me a relationship model. And the script is not very long. And if you use it, like do a new chat and say create model and say create the elements and relationships for a failed tariff implementation. It won't take it too long, and it'll develop me a nice set of code snippets. Well, they're not actually code snippets. They're actually CVS tables that I could actually copy and paste into a text file and then drop them into Kumu. Now, I readily found out that I could never understand much of anything just looking at the tables. I mean, they're overwhelming. But I would have to generate the table, put the table in a text file, put it in Kumu, develop the model, look at the model, and think about it for a while to figure out what was the next question I wanted to ask. So, I mean, sometimes there are variables that aren't connected, or this variable might have a relationship on this, and I ask it additional questions. And it didn't take I said it didn't take very long. It took longer than it really should have because there was a whole ton of models that got developed. All right, this is how they came out. Corporate life cycles, crossing democracy to autocracy, and just one after the other. And finally, I got to a point of saying, this is ludicrous, spending this time doing all of these steps that are just busy work, going from the CVS table to a text file to Kumu to figure out what the next question was to ask. Because the whole idea was, because the LLM knows so much more about relationships than I do, I can ask it to help me understand what what I don't under the things I don't know. How to realize that there are these three or four pieces that are really relevant to this puzzle that if I developed the model from scratch would never come to mind. So I started once Gemini finally came out with where is it? Oh, new chat. Finally came out with Canvas, and they say Canvas will go ahead and write code for you. The question was, could I use Canvas and get it to do the same thing? So if I go back here and grab this and go to a new chat, I did start the video, didn't I? And
Yes, you did.
thank you. And tell it to create the elements of relationships for field tariff implementation using Canvas. Well, it's slower than I would like it to be, but it is so much faster than me doing it manually. But this isn't what I'm looking for. I want it to causal loop diagram. Draw me a causal loop diagram of the relationships. So then what it does is hopefully it decides to actually write the HTML code, which it's doing now. If you watch it, and I think it's doing something good, but I couldn't write this code that it's writing faster than I can read it. And it's embedding the data into the code. And when it gets done, it shows this POS diagram here that doesn't show up very well. And let me go ahead and just refresh this and see if it looks any better. No, it's not any better. So then the question was, okay, it's beginning to do some things that are meaningful. In other words, it's got descriptions attached to the pieces, but it's not there. So 20 some iterations later, so when I got it to do something useful, I would grab the code and I would save it. All right, I copy the contents and put it in an HTML file. And after some number of iterations, when I got to a point where it was solid, I would save it as version 0 and then work forward from there. So 20 some odd relationships later, if I now go ahead and say upload files, and I upload this diagram, this HTML file, and say use the code I just uploaded and draw a diagram for failed implementation. And it will go ahead and use that code as a template. Now, you could actually, well, you can't do it there, but if I went to, hold on, download, what that HTML file actually looks like is this. It was done for some other question that I asked. And this is what I saved to use as a template. So when I go back here, oh, it's still writing. Oh, something went wrong. There was a problem. Fix the error. Now, it's not perfect. It's relatively reliable. And this may be because I've dumped this part of the task in with, excuse me, with what was already running. Where's the control panel? Other people tell me about having this happen and not realizing where the control panel went. And I don't know where it went either. Oh, there it is. So it should get done in a second. There. So that's a little better. So what I now have is a diagram, a reasonable causal loop diagram where all of the elements have descriptions, all of the relationships have descriptions. You can move the pieces around. You can change the curvature of the pieces. And you can also go up here and say, oh, there's only one loop in it at the moment. All right, so you can tell it to highlight that loop. That's not a loop. Oh, it is a loop. Sorry. It is. See, it does more than I do. In terms of domestic industry competitiveness, reduces pressure to innovate, and the domestic innovation enhances the market position, driving domestic. All right. Now, from here, what one does, nobody's asked any questions yet. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? So what we do is, or what I do is, I study the diagram and I look at the relationships. And sometimes I find things where, okay, what's this political stability over here? Well, isn't there something that ought to be influencing? So I say, what should political stability? So I did this the other day and I asked it what some additional relationships were, and it listed the relationships. And I said, go ahead and add them to the diagram. It said, well, tell me what you want to add. So it had already forgotten what it told me. And I had to tell it to go back and look at the elements that it just told me about. So the idea is, or I think the idea is, the diagram will never be correct. It will be a foundation for evolving understanding to some point. And to understand the extent or the way that I want to evolve the understanding, I have to generate the relationships and look at them. And what was it that I was looking for? The political stability, where is that? I think the diagram's getting worse. It isn't even on here anywhere. Is it? Oh, there it is. Oh, sorry. So it says political stability influences this and this. I say, well, okay. Fix the diagram. Fix the diagram. So there are no, those are the variables that are hanging out there that aren't connected to anything. So it's an iteration of having it tell you what it thinks and evaluating what it thinks, and then going through and figuring out additional things that you want to investigate. And then the question is, okay, so I end up with this diagram. Now what do I do with it? Because I'm back in the same scenario that I've always been in, is I have this diagram that I can just inflict on other people and give them headaches, which is not a good idea. And so, well, it got most of them, but not all of them. There's still, this one's still hanging out here, but the rest of them it managed to connect. So tell me, tell me, and emotional tripping over the truth about how this tariff implementation. Now, I realize that I never told it how to define a failed implementation to begin with, but that's okay. We'll see what happens. So now what it's doing is it's writing me a story about this model. So if I was going to show someone anything to begin with, it would in fact be the story about the model. And sometimes I read them and I like them, and sometimes I read them and say, well, write it to me differently. And then I can say, all right, how would this story differ for the various stakeholders? Because different people have a different take on the story. So what it's now telling me is for the government policymakers, the initial hope, gross in disbelief. For Oldman Emmett, these are people in the story. Um, for for young Maya, so it's telling me various perspectives about the story itself, which gives me a better understanding of the relationships. So to help someone get a sense of the model itself, I would actually first give them the story and let them read the story about the relationships and how the situation unfolded to get them into a position of asking for additional information. Yes, Rick.
Oh,
Rick?
sorry, it's Paul. I've got the company name up, not my personal name. Gene, the developing the narrative off the back of the map, is that just the LLM doing that the best it can, or have you got some more gem instructions you've got built behind there about what you mean by telling a story of the map?
No, I didn't tell. No, there's nothing behind the scenes
That's
that
just
you
raw at the
haven't
moment.
seen.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm. Yeah. And then, I mean, the number of questions that you can ask are
yeah,
sort of endless in terms
yeah.
of uh, what might be the
Yeah.
most relevant. what might be the most relevant leverage points for improving the situation?
Hmm.
So focus on intrinsic domestic industry competitiveness rather than just protection, mitigating immediate consumer burden, proactive and agile international diplomacy, strengthening, I mean, I, I'm just fascinated by its ability to help me understand things that it would take me weeks or months to figure out on my own. And typically when I do one of these, and I do several of them every day, it I look at what it shows me and I realize that I probably wouldn't have identified half of the items. I never would have documented all of the elements. Now I got to go back and holler at it again because it used to wrap this text for me and it's not wrapping it now. Um, in terms of, I mean, I think the Kumu people hate me at the moment. Um, they're, they're developing version 3 and they want me to test it, and I keep telling them it's boring. Um, Ask me some questions.
Yeah.
I mean,
So how accurate, based on your experience, are the indicators that this is giving you? Do you take a look at a node and go, well, that's not connected to the things it really should be connected to? Or, is this making things up that don't make sense?
very, very seldom have I looked at one of the models and found something that I wanted to throw away. More often than not, I find things that, like I said before, well, this is just influenced by some things, but it doesn't influence anything in the model. And it seems like it ought to. And I could tell it if I wanted to find me a connection between import cost for domestic business and public dissatisfaction. And it might find one and it might not.
Okay. All right. Interesting.
Christoph,
Yes, hello. Thank you very much for this invitation. I'm really thrilled to be here, and I'm really interested in what you have done, Gene. My question is related to the source information of the models that you are presenting. I know that you are using the knowledge from Gemini, but are you able to trace back the source knowledge for the elements and links? Meaning, are you able to say, okay, import costs for domestic business is the result of the reasoning, and this reasoning has some, something behind, like a corpus of knowledge that you can identify and discuss later on with. So that's my real question.
I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. So I asked it why it included it, and it told me, and and then I could say, do you have so the I mean it it doesn't have a clue as to what you really want until you ask it a question. And the question sort of gives you a sense of what maybe the next question ought to be. So, I mean, here's like 3, 4, 6, 12 references for that particular item. I mean, if it gave it everything that it could give you initially, you'd end up with another Afghan strategy model, which nobody understands, and it would be a tome. Okay, it's a question of for me anyway, developing a set of breadcrumbs that lead me to a level of understanding. And there are times when the diagram gets to be such a mess, I have to go back and start over again because I've added so many pieces. Maybe I could just, what happens if I say, can you, I don't know. Sarah, you had a question? Hi,
Excuse
Sarah.
me.
Hi there. I was just trying to get my video on and turn off mute. Yeah, this is really fascinating and insightful. And I think my question is quite similar to others, sort of asking about the background data, but I'm trying to think of AI as a tool that you train. So I'm just asking in the kind of questions and how you would phrase things to help the model get developed. Have you come across any tips and tricks that make that more intuitive or to get more insightful answers that can help with those kind of question phrasing as you're building models?
That doesn't look simpler, does it? I don't I don't think I can give you a reliable answer to the question. It's like I said, for me, every day is just a bunch of trial and learning.
Right.
So that the way that I ask the questions has sort of gotten to a point where I don't so much think about the way I ask the questions anymore. It's about I'm looking, tripping over the truth is something I got from the Heath brothers in one of their books in terms of the best way to communicate to someone is a clear insight compressed in time that's delivered in a way that the audience discovers it. So they have an aha moment so that you tell it that you want, and it knew what tripping over the truth was. All right. So I didn't have to explain all that. In other words, it's sort of a lot of investigation to find out that it knows whatever it is that you're thinking about, which is wonderful. And I've sort of stopped wasting a lot of time trying to figure out what it does know because it knows. Okay.
It's interesting. Thank you. Thank you.
Right. Paul?
So, new computer, literally only finished setting it up today. First off, Jean, you and I spoke about this 6-8 months ago when you were much earlier in the process, and this is so much more powerful than then. So I'm so impressed to see what you've been up to. On the question people have raised about, trusting the data it's using to do it. I'm working with a group here in the UK, some of them at Oxford University, some in a complexity group called CCAN. And in those contexts, we're dealing with situations which are highly technical, but which there is established literature about relationships and this kind of thing. And so we're making the model run by giving it the data and saying, find me the relationships and factors using these documents. We might give it 10, 20 references, which helps with the knowing that it's doing it from the data you know. You could then, of course, ask it to search the world of the internet for anything that's missing from these. And then a practical question, Jean, that HTML map means you can now explore the model and you can iterate faster. Can you still dump it out the end into Kumu so you can do a posh, neat version of it? Is the structural still there somewhere to make the Kumu files?
Well, I would expect I could tell it that I want it to convert the model to
Yeah.
an element to a node and an
A node and link
edge
with all the
tables.
nodes and the
Right.
directionality and the colors
Right.
and everything. Yeah.
I mean, it has to have the data in there someplace.
Yeah.
The question is how you ask it to get it out.
Yeah. So we haven't tried that yet, but you think it should be possible. Because
Mhm.
obviously once
I
you get to
just,
the end,
I,
wanted
I
to
just,
give the
I,
narrative to people, that will
I
help.
just I haven't felt a need to go back to Kumu, which is
Yeah.
part of what bothers them.
I'm annoying Kumu as well by asking them for more things to be able to do in the coding. So together we're both annoying them, but they're very helpful. The last question was, do you think you could write a gem to take it on from here to say, in general, I would like narratives that are based around this way of thinking, this way of describing. I'd like to give you 4 characters in the story, and I'd like you to write the narrative in this way and make that almost a template that you could use.
Well, in other words, here are things that I have told it when I
Yeah.
requested Gemini Canvas to create a closed loop diagram.
Yeah.
The diagram should be stationary
Yeah.
and all of this stuff, but it's not using that now that I'm using the HTML file as all
Yeah.
right. And then I told it some things about me and my history. And
Yeah.
it's weird because sometimes it writes things as though I'm writing it because it talks about
Yeah.
it talks about me in the text, which threw me off guard the first time that I ran into it.
Yeah.
So, okay. Julia.
Okay, I've been following along, creating my own as you're going, and there are a couple things I'm finding super irritating. I'm wondering why yours doesn't show up this way. One is yours is just more manipulatable. When I move mine around, the arrows do wonky things. It gets harder and harder to read, and it just doesn't look as clean. So if there's something you're communicating that gives it that would be helpful. I have kind of the same question, same 2 questions folks have been asking, but with some additional thoughts. On the evidence side, when I've been generating the Kumu version, I've been asking it to give me descriptions of each node, and within those, the citations it's pulling from, and descriptions of each connection, including the citations. And so it's pretty rich information that then helps me ask better questions. But I hate the take it into Kumu, take it out, take it in, take it out, like the back and forth we talked about is driving me insane. So I'm wondering if there's a way to get it to that point in here. I do also think ultimately taking it out of this and into Kumu has value because I do this collaboratively then, so others can work with it, unless you found a way to make this collaborative, where you can have different people playing with it who are not savvy with Gemini. So that was 3 different questions, sorry. Any of them you want to answer?
None of them. No. So when I send you the link to the video for this, I will also send you this HTML file.
Okay.
This is essentially a template that it's using to simply replace the data that's in the in other words, here is what's actually in that HTML file itself. It was for some other organizational learning, whatever thing. And it used the code I uploaded to draw a causal loop diagram for failed tariff implementation. It's replacing that set of data in this HTML file and drawing this map. Okay. So I will send that HTML file to everyone. And I expect that in the future, it will continue to evolve as I figure out things that it ought to do. So that's probably why the diagram that it generated for you isn't as manipulable, whatever that word is, in terms of the diagram it draws. The second question about going from here to Kumu and back again. I know what you're doing in Kumu, okay? I mean, I've sort of been there a bit. And I think you're using the AI to get a deeper level of content, and Kumu is your repository for it all, right? Using AI to, I mean, the model you're building is huge, okay? And I at this stage of the game, I think I would be very presumptuous as to think that I could get one of the LLMs to generate it.
So what if it's a smaller model though? Same idea that so I generated one related to cycles in the child care system, policy system, and it's fine. It's essentially creating the same surface level information as when I did it last night, using the please create my Kumu code for me instead, or my Kumu files. The problem is that it's so surface level, it's almost not usable. And I really want to see those richer descriptions that it gives me when I say generate my Kumu, Google file that I can then load into Kumu, because there I have the description and the sources. So even with a simple model, is there a way to ask this model to give you more behind what its conclusions are? I see the float over. It's even more than that though.
So
and
well,
connections as well.
So I would expect that you can just ask it that, or tell it that you want additional information for each one of the elements and the connections and references, and put them in the model. Though
Okay.
I need to send you the HTML file, and you can play with it from there to ask the questions and see what you can get it to do. And I'd really like to know about it.
Great. And then
And
last one is, if at the end you wanted to send all of this in a way that you could drop into Kumu, I tried that and it did not work. It gave me, the JSON file. And when I loaded into Kumu, it didn't work. So how would you recommend telling it to give you Kumu content? I see you typing it. Thank you.
It thinks about nodes and edges more than elements and relationship.
Okay.
Nodes and edges, tables.
And it's node, not notes. I'm the resident spell checker, I guess, in which case everyone's in trouble.
There's the nodes, and there are the relation edges.
Sorry to jump the queue. And will that have the notes? You hover over notes and the directionality of the arrows in it, or would that require some more instruction, if you like? Because clearly the HTML, the directionality and everything in it. Yeah.
In other words, the directionality is in the diagram that you were looking at, and when it creates this, it says from to polarity label description.
It should have it, yeah, and it should have all the notes in the background as well.
Now, I don't remember whether polarity is the right polarity and label are the right ones to migrate it into. In other words, when I developed my gem, I told it specifically how to label the tables. Here, I didn't tell it anything about labeling. It just came up with those. And this is ID label description. Yeah, because Kumu doesn't. Well, it does do labels on the yeah. Okay. But ID and label in terms of the nodes are the same thing in
I
Kumu.
think you could create a mapped
Yeah.
table, Gene, and give it to it like you gave it the HTML code and say, please use this format, and it would probably work it out.
So in terms of the question about programming it, it's still once I leave, it forgets everything we talked about. The extent to which I have taught it things are the things I put in gems and the iterations for that HTML file, so that that HTML file is a level of learning that has been evolved over months. I don't know where it is. Oh, there it is. So that, I mean, I said that there's 20 some iterations of that HTML file. Every time it did something that I liked, I saved it. And then I moved forward from there. And now, as I said, right now, this is that's not it. I think it lost the diagram. Be careful. Yeah, I lost, for some reason it lost the diagram. I think it wrote over the top of it. I hadn't had it do that before. Okay. So, as I said, when I send you the video from this session, I will also include that HTML file. And I will also send you the link the link to all these gems that I've developed that you can do whatever you want with them. I mean, there's investigate stories, when a user provides a story, analyze it to determine which systems archetypes are present in the story, and then describe how to deal with them. And this one was the archetypes. Look at the iceberg model and the Donella Meadows leverage points for addressing a situation. I mean, it was just continuing to dream up things that I could ask it. To help me better understand a set of relationships and their implications. More questions? I'm here.
Gene, this is Chip. First of all, I guess you want to say I think that the screen on the panel on the left is from the brain, just so people know.
Oh yeah, this is yeah.
I was wondering if it's possible. This is sort of a little bit off topic, but we could try to set up a email discussion group or a message chain where the people that are interested in joining it could continue sort of going back and forth, including yourself.
Where would you put that? Where would I put that? That's a
Discord.
Yeah.
Discord or something. Yeah.
If somebody wants to set it up, I'll participate.
Okay.
All
right.
Happily. Okay. I'll
take a shot at setting that up, Gene.
Well, that would be very kind of you. Thank you.
I'm pretty sure there can be multiple. I don't know about owners or moderators on the group, so we can set it up so it's got some long-term legs.
Okay. So I used to do content reviews. In other words, give it some uh, what's the title of Donella Meadows' book? Systems Thinking Primer? Oh, Thinking in Systems, a primer. So Ken has a script that does a far more extensive overview of something, but people are constantly giving me book titles saying you ought to read this, you ought to read this, and I ain't got 5 lifetimes. So I just put together this short script that we'll go ahead and look at. Please provide the core thesis, themes, key ideas, key points, summary, and key takeaways for whatever. And therefore, I can go ahead and read this. And if I want more information, I can ask for it, or if I want less. But I mean, it's something that I can read in a couple of minutes to get a good sense of what it is. So it's, oh, and why am I using Gemini? I don't know. I mean, I ended up gravitating from ChatGPT to Gemini when they released a couple of things that I liked, and I haven't found a good reason to leave yet. But in terms of which one's best, it depends on which day of the week you ask the question, because they're just going one over the other.
And Gene,
Yes, Ken.
I can just say in terms of choosing Gemini, if any of you are in an organization that could qualify as a nonprofit, Google gives you an 85% discount. So for me to subscribe as an individual user to all of Google's standard business is about $3 and something a month, as opposed to 30 or something else. So any nonprofit status, and I'm not sure if they have an educational discount, but I find that a tremendous incentive for using Gemini.
Yeah. In terms of, I thought I saw an email not long ago that said that there's 100% discount, student discount for Gemini.
So it's time to become a student again. Gene, just to jump in on this thing, in a sense, that playing with Gemini and playing with ChatGPT, they're both quite good at doing the language bit. The bit ChatGPT's been terrible at is what you've achieved by doing the HTML coding. And effectively, you've iterated to produce the bit that I think both the models find really hard to do if you start them from scratch every time. So I'm certainly going to take a go at taking your HTML file when you get that and doing the same thing in GPT and seeing if it can do the same from inside, because it should be able to. And then that brings it down to which of them works better in terms of storing the understanding about the game you're playing, if you like. You know, what are the characteristics you want it to use? Because it doesn't store any understanding. None of them really understand what they're doing. But that
Okay, so
that GPT-7 is great.
okay, so this is the source HTML file right here.
Yeah.
Okay. So if I go to Gemini, and I'm currently in Flash. The last time I tried this in Pro, it didn't work. Okay. So Of course, that was a couple weeks ago. Who knows what today's like? So I can just say, upload this file. I'll upload this file. Tell me a story. Now, I'm not using Canvas at the moment. Complexities of systems thinking.
Doing it as a dramatic novel.
But is it relative to what is this model about?
Organizational learning.
Oh, competition, inertia, adaptability, creative. I had to put labels on my models so I know what they're about. Oh, I know. I was asking about innovation and a change of mindset based on Sengi's learning disabilities, and we become what we do, and so on and so forth in terms of the rate of disruptive innovation and variables. And here it is. He shifted his focus to the end of the what we enable mindset, this node with hopeful label. Yep. It went into the text of the HTML file, figured out the data, and wrote me a story relevant to the model. Now, the other thing is, this one messed my mind. If I go here, I grab this, and I save this, save as. I'm just grabbing a screenshot and saving the JPEG file. I go back to Gemini and I start a new chat. And I upload this image.
Gene, I think it's correct to say that you have made the storytelling process something that will be more interesting. That's what you asked for. But there's no reason why you couldn't say, give me a technical discussion or a technical talk about it, right?
Right. So it's actually somehow reading the text in that image, and it's giving me an analysis of the image itself. And okay.
Done quite well.
What are the implications? The most significant implication is the potential for an incumbent organization to fall into a self-reinforcing trap. And that's just from a picture. Now you know why I can't sleep much. The arms race dynamics, criticality of organizational learning adaptability, the power of what we enable mindset, disruptive innovation. Wow. And somebody posted a model on LinkedIn one day, and I grabbed a screenshot of the image and posted a story about the model because I didn't want to take time to understand the model. You got me for another 30 minutes. Have at it.
If nobody else wants to jump in, I have another thought, Gene.
Okay.
Just following on the thought process of you developing the HTML file to draw the map and giving it the map effect, giving it the tool to draw the map with, and how powerful that is. I'm wondering if we somehow gave it the JavaScript to go with it, whether it could draw the panel on the left like Kumu does. You can't do that in HTML. You know, that when you hover over the notes come up in that kind of thing.
Mm.
But the idea would be same. You know, you'd give it to say, and now add in the information panel on the left using, I think it would be JavaScript or something like that. That's an interesting side game to have at some point, maybe for me. COBOL, excellent.
Not that I want it, but
yeah.
I ask it about a dozen different languages and it understands all of them.
Yeah.
So I had it write it in HTML so it would display it in this window.
Yeah.
And not have to go someplace else to look at it.
I think that's right. I think that's the most powerful thing. I mean, all Kumu is doing apart from that is it's drawing the other boxes in Metron using CSS underneath it.
Well,
so that's an avenue that my mind might go down, is to have a go at taking this and making it add the frame on the left. Just because I personally find that easier for looking at notes about a map. If I hover over it, I get the note, nice and big where my bad eyes can read it.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just eager to go and try and play with this now, because I played with your versions of things from 6-8 months ago in Kumu and went down that avenue and did my own version. I want to get back into this now, Gene, and have a go with it. Others are doing.
From someplace, I don't know, wherever. the HTML file, in other words, I started in Canvas and asked it to draw me a causal diagram of something. In other words, sometimes I'll have this discussion and we'll carry on back and forth for a half hour.
Yeah.
And then I'll say, write me a summary of our conversation to this point. And now draw me a causal relationship model about this story.
About the conversation you've had.
Right.
Because
I'm not going to go back and read it.
Is Canvas one of the Gemini add-ins, if you like, or?
Yeah. In other words,
I'm not familiar with the term.
Right here at the bottom.
Oh, there it is. Right. Okay. Yeah.
And it's free. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to subscribe to Gemini to get Canvas. They're pushing it really big. So I started with Canvas and I simply said, draw me a causal loop diagram. And the first ones were terrible.
Yeah.
And every time I found it to do something that I liked, I saved it and started over again. All right. As opposed to having a good version and then corrupting it because I asked it another question and it screwed it up. So you could leverage it the same way, I think, with whatever you want it to do piece by piece.
I'll say again, Joe, I think the big learning for me tonight is the idea of the bit that these codes find really hard to do is the drawing of the map. And by spending time doing that once, you've created a template that you can just reuse and gradually iterate and make better. And that's a huge mountain to get over.
the huge, the
I've never
really
seen anybody else
huge,
do it.
the really huge part of the mountain was the that in when I was doing the the stuff that was migrating to Kumu,
Yeah.
it would not, absolutely would not do anything close to a good job on identifying loops.
Yeah.
Because it would describe loops that weren't loops. It would describe loops with variables in it that weren't variables in the model. And one day I said, do you know what a depth first search for cycles in a directed graph is? And it said, yes. I said, okay, go get the code and include it in the HTML.
Yeah. Cycles in a directed graph. So you found the mathematical terminology for what it was you were asking it to do.
And I told it to go get the code and include it, and it worked. And that's where this came from. So that it's been extremely reliable on identifying loops now.
Yeah. Edith is asking whether you've investigated building simulations on top of this. Is that what you mean, Edith? Just so you've typed it in there.
Yes, it is. I was curious about simulations.
So you take it to a sort of stock and flow diagram type thing.
If I haven't, though, I'll drop this in the chat.
Yeah.
This was developed by Scott Fort Monroe, and he is sign up to chat. Oh, you gotta log in. Create a prey predator model. So I understand that he intends to continue working on this to a point where it'll flow right into Insight Maker. Presently, it's thinking it'll show you all of the pieces for a stock and for a prey predator stock and flow simulation model, and you can just migrate the pieces.
Yeah.
So it tells you what the stocks are, what the flows are, the formulas and the values to put into it. And that's the closest thing I've seen to date to get you to a simulation model.
Someone there just created a Discord for a discussion on this.
Yep, so it's up there
Isn't it?
and ready to start. It's a large empty space at the moment. I'll talk to Gene about his ideas of getting some of it set up. So at least he'll be interested in using it.
Why only me?
Well, because you're the one at the moment that's driving some of this aspect of things, but everybody, as you get a shot at taking a look at it, everybody can be fully involved.
Oh, look at the label. How nice. Thank you.
So,
in case any of you hasn't realized it, WKID AI Exchange is Tuesday and Thursday meetings that we have to talk about the fact that we can't keep up with AI and what different people are doing with it. And if you want to participate, let me know and I'll send you the information about it. It's 11 o'clock on Tuesdays and 5 o'clock on Thursdays, New York time. The other thing, well, as long as there isn't another question on the table, The other thing that I've been playing with lately that I've become relatively addicted to is not YouTube, but if I go here and I grab okay. Here's a video. If I go here and click recall, it grabs the transcript for the video, creates me a summary for it, creates a set of connections out of the content. And when I put it into recall itself, what did it save it under? Oh, geopolitics. Really? Okay. I go to geopolitics. Yeah. Not there. Why is it not there? Oh, I have to save it first. I can actually chat with the content. It will develop me a set of quiz cards on the content. This set of connections ties into the rest of my knowledge graph, which if I look at all of it and just go to the graph, there's a lot of stuff that is already in there because I've been using it for a couple of weeks now. And it's just
Just say
go
what this is,
look.
Gene. This is
Called getrecall.ai.
getrecall.ai.
I just dropped the link in the chat.
Okay.
Use this discount code.
Never mind keeping
Nova.
up with AI. I can't keep up with everything Gene's doing.
Neither can I. So if you're interested, in other words, the marvelous thing about it, it's developed by a group of people in the Netherlands, and it's only $7 a month if you sign up annually. And if you use discount code NOVA30, there's a 30% discount through the end of this month. What something that really humbled me is I had it develop a set of quiz cards on some of my own notes, and I got some of the answers wrong. Hear that one?
Gene, I signed up and I've been delighted with it. It's
Okay,
a
good.
great help and better than most other things I've seen. So,
And well, I don't know. This wasn't supposed to be a session about recall, but because I'm so stuck on it, you could take something. In other words, this is the map based upon all of the connections between the cards, but over here is actually a taxonomy, and you can put things in as many places in the taxonomy as you want to, because this falls under capitalism and economics, and I could file it in a half a dozen different places if I wanted to. And my problem is I have a tendency to not remember where I filed it, but the search has proven to be pretty good, and if I create a card, it'll take YouTube videos, podcasts, websites, articles, blogs, PDFs, Google Docs, slides. You can import your bookmarks or simply start with an empty card and create all your own notes. So if I go look at
When you go to the systems thinking, well,
here's my notes about recall. as I was learning about it, and I deleted the questions because there were too many of them. It does what's called spaced repetition, so that when you initially create the set of cards, it will ask you the questions. And if you get any wrong, it will ask you them right immediately. And then tomorrow and next week and a month later, it will ask you the questions over again. It does spaced repetition in terms of helping you remember things. So if I go to review cards and questions, here are the questions about this particular video, and this, I guess I'm past due on that question, and the rest of them will come back up in 6 days, because it'll tell me that I've got 2 particular entries that I can start review on. Here's my reviews over the past 10 days or so. The orange ones are the ones I got wrong. And what bothered me most of all is this piece of software is actually like 18 months old. And I found it 10 days ago. I hear you chuckling, Ken.
I'm just so delighted you're telling us about it now. Just delighted. Gene, as you go back to this model, if I could comment and an idea, from listening to the conversation, it seems that each of us may have a particular purpose for using these loop diagrams in our jobs. Or some of us may be generalists and build a number of different models for different people. I don't know. But as a management consultant, I'm thinking that there is a tremendous market for developing some templates for use by CEOs or senior management consultants for planning and implementation, like you had implementation of tariffs, but why not implementing requisite organization in an organization and building the loop models and then asking a lot of questions. Then the other thing which we shared the other day was with the declining attention of managers. What Gemini was recommending was micro learning, which is basically a 3 to 7 minute snippet of a concept at a time. It's about all managers can take these days. And what I was thinking was, in your innovative use of stories, one could take individual management concepts like setting context or setting cross-functional relationships and build a story, and a graphic that's suitable for maybe a post-it, or maybe even we'll find a way to make a HeyGen video of it. But it seems that we could use your method if we could figure out, if I could, maybe working with you, if I could figure out a way to do a general thing for support of a CEO or a consultant in planning and implementation, I think there would be a tremendous use and pickup on selling systems thinking within a corporate setting. And I just would like a reaction from Eugene or others to that idea.
Based upon our conversation the other day, Ken, I went and said, use the uploaded file and create me a causative diagram that promotes an organization to align with its purpose. And it pumped out all of these things that I thought were very well related in terms of leadership commitment, aligned action, drives resource effectiveness, and the perceived need for change initiates aligned. In other words, I thought this was a really meaningful model in terms of things that were relevant to get the organization aligned with its purpose, if it could understand what its purpose was. Um,
Well, I guess part of my micro learning thing, could we take an individual node or let's say a relationship between nodes and tell it to build a stumbling on truth story of a certain length, certain graphic that could really bring that link or that causal loop to life, and then teach it as a micro learning experience in small doses that managers could pick up. So this is the tension between understanding the whole elephant, which is looking at the whole model and understanding it all, versus eating the elephant bite by bite. Is it, a good learning concept to learn bite by bite, or do you have to see the whole thing? Or do you get maybe a short overview of the whole elephant and then start eating it bite by bite once you know how big the elephant is or its relative shape or something? Anyway, any other comments on how this could be really picked up? I'm just thinking that the business and corporate environment is massive. There's great need. There's a great shortness of attention span at the top everywhere. And yet we're supposed to be dealing in long-term systems thinking. So I've been trying to put together this idea of only getting 3 to 7 minutes of attention time and having managers being able to look at these large systems implications over 10 to 20 years, right? So anyway, I'd love reactions if you have any others.
My mind went in a slightly different direction as you were talking there. But picking up on the bite-sized thing, rather than just saying, well, let's stop at bite-sized learning that is text-based, you could see a pathway where you've got a model, it's too much to absorb in one bite, if you like. But if you chain a few tools together, why can't you make it create a teaching video in 5-minute bites as a series of teaching videos? I mean, that's quite a lot of steps because you've got to go to text first and text with the right bit of picture and then into one of the things that creates, instructional videos and stuff. But the building blocks of that all exist. I'm not sure how you connect them together, but and then you give your manager, here's the system model and the picture. Here are 10 3-minute videos that once you've watched them all, you'll understand all the main links and loops. You'd have a story with each loop. Maybe.
Yes.
So if you've never seen a steak before, rather than me trying to convince you that you should eat it, first you have to sense the aroma and get a taste. And then you're hungry.
Yeah.
So where I am now is I really don't want to show models to people.
No.
Not initially anyway. I want to figure out how to get them to have an aha moment about something so that they ask the question to open the door about and what else and why and
why
whatever.
is that? Yeah. And why is that? And then why is that? Yeah.
Because I mean, I said I've inflicted my models on people for over 4 decades, and I don't think I've changed anybody's mind yet. So maybe I should try something different. I like the last line of this. The truth is often simple, sometimes even staring us in the face. But to truly trip over it, to feel its emotional weight and embrace the painful yet liberating discipline it demands, that's where true alignment begins.
Good.
I ask it to write me a story just about the relevance of aligned action, which was one element of the model. I would have to tell it, after I read this, I would have to tell it to go back and rewrite it and stop making all of the explicit references to certain aspects of the model. That, in other words, it's talking about R1 and the purpose loop and stuff that's that's explicit in the model that shouldn't be in the story.
It comes to mind that one could take a script of these stories, which I don't know, there's 600 words or so 800 words, something like that, and feed it into a video producer with some.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I experimented with some program 8 months ago, which I got lost in for a while. And I know HeyGen does some stuff, but any recommendations on the latest, simplest way to get a story like this into a movie production software that would do a reasonable job?
Copy and
I haven't
paste.
done it, but I was going in the same direction because that's, there's tools to do that coming out regularly now. Whether Gemini can do it itself, I don't know. But
Well,
you can now make it do it with your voice and your face.
I would love to do it in the voice and face of the CEO of the company. Or,
Yeah, yeah. I'm
you
sure
know,
you can change it after you've done it once and say, now swap it out.
I'll experiment with, I guess, with my own, but we would need the CEO to go to a green room and give a sample of his or her gestures and voice, and then change of clothes and so forth. So,
Someone mentioned using these ideas in management consulting, and I know, we do big consulting reports for clients, this kind of thing, and getting them to engage with the underlying system thinking is hard, as Gene says. But if I say to them, okay, it's all in the report, but if you want to understand the system model, pause now, go and watch this series of 5-minute video, 3-minute videos, which is only really the same as saying, why don't we have a meeting and I'll take you round it, but it's done smoothly at a self-learning pace rather than everything coming at them in text and picture and fixed pictures.
that's exactly, Paul.
I think that would be superb.
That's exactly the same line. I would love to
Yeah.
chat with you about this. Okay, great.
And you're trying it inside Gemini, are you? Is it using an outside tool to do it, do you think? Or do you think it's got this built in, Gene?
no, this is V3 that's now built into Gemini.
All right, okay. You gradually persuaded me to stop paying my ChatGPT subscription and jump to Gemini now. Let's see how it does.
Sound?
Well, it's playing music in the background,
Right, okay, so it
but
hasn't
you
got a
can't
voiceover,
hear
but you
because I
could
didn't
put
turn it
one
on.
Yeah.
And I've looked at some videos on YouTube recently that I could tell were a whole bunch of these 8-second pieces
Yeah.
streamed together.
Yes.
And I think Snagit now allows you to do that. To just grab in other words, there are some sophisticated video editing software that's all beyond me. Snagit from TechSmith is about the extent of something I'm capable of handling, and to be able to string a half a dozen videos together would be awesome.
I think the challenge, Gene, would be if you were doing this for the reason Ken was talking about a minute ago, is you would want the video not to have, nice pictures on it. You'd want it to show the part of the map. So let's say you had a CLD and it's got 4 key loops in it, and you basically want a video that describes each loop.
Mhm.
Be easy to generate the story. You could do that. You've already demonstrated it. Then you want a video that takes the image of the map, zooms in on that part of the loop, and as it's talking about the connections, it's showing it in the map. That would be a difficult concept for the AI to understand, but possibly not impossible. Might not be impossible for it to say, when you're talking about this part of the map, I want you to show that part of the map in the video. This is way out of my knowledge area now.
Mine too. We'll work on it next week. As I said, it's from my perspective, it's just all about trial and learning.
Yeah. I've got about 10 things to do out of this session, Gene, including trying your new versions of everything, but I've also got a map I've been doing recently on the how do you develop a better STEM education program in a country and get it all the way through to STEM people working in industry over a lifetime. And I'd love to remake that using this and see how it comes out. Because I had to do quite a bit of manual work in that. I did the nodes and everything were generated in AI. It did a terrible job drawing the map, so I had to do it manually. I'd really like to see how well this does now from that one.
Well, give me a couple hours. I'll send you the video, all the links and the pieces. And yeah.
Gene,
Yes, sir.
it's been a great experience in the last 90 minutes, and I can think of other people I would like to see it. And I wonder if there would be a way for me to send them your link and you could charge them your registration fee and send them a copy of the video. Could something be arranged so that I could tell my friends to contact you and send in their registration fee?
Just do it.
What? Just do what?
Whatever.
You mean give it away?
Don't ask for permission. Ask for forgiveness later.
You mean I should put it on YouTube free to the world? No, I want
Fine. I don't. Whatever.
to get some revenue. Would you be willing to charge for it if I send people to you? That's what I'm asking.
Sure. Sure.
Thank you.
The only reason that I charged $15 for this was because if people invested $15, they might show up.
Yeah.
Okay. Because if it's free, who gives a shit? You know, I mean, it's far easier to sign up than it is to show up. And I figured $15 was, $5, $10 an hour is not a bad price.
And I figure if people send you $15 for the video, they will probably watch it. If it were free, they might not.
Yeah, that too. Okay. Well, I thank you all. Is there one more question before we leave? Well, I thank you all for the interactions. And I hope you have found it meaningful. If you have additional questions later, you should all have my email address. Just let me know. Okay.
Nice.
Take care, all. Thank you.
You guys, such a lovely conversation with you all. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gene.
Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much.
See you tomorrow, Gene.
Tomorrow.